everyone. Welcome to another installment of Near AI Office Hours. We have today Bill and David from Pin AI. Do you guys want to introduce yourself, and we can dive in what you guys are working on, and also how it kind of, in interesting ways, intersects with what Near AI is working, and in general, vision for the future of AI assistants.
David, why don't you start?
Sure. Hi. My name is David Krapis. I'm one of the co-founder of Pin AI. Before this, my background is I was doing core research at the Ethereum Foundation, mainly focusing on like MEV, fee markets. And before that, I was running some ML engineering teams at Lyft. So we were designing the Lyft marketplace platform. My team actually started that, and then it grew. So everything at the intersection of like economic mechanism and machine learning. This was like before transformers, but we were using CompNets for like the key modeling the key function of the marketplace and utility function of users.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bill. I'm one of the co-founder at Pin AI and chief scientist. And before Pin AI, I have been doing AI startups since like early 2023. And before that, I've been in one of the large hedge funds that run like 20% team and have like a $1 billion, like basically running ML to trade US equity. And before that, I was a Stanford AI PhD. I'm a math PhD that like spent my whole like math research career in deep learning. When I started in 2014, I was looking into different research topics and feel like, okay, there's only two really interesting topics. One is deep learning, one is Bitcoin. As a math PhD, I feel like deep learning seems like there is more mathematical things that I can truly try to understand. Although even today, I don't consider I understand much of actually how deep learning works, but I spent the entire PhD career doing those research. And in 2016, I was actually at Google Brain doing question answering and working very closely with people like Ashish. And I think, Illia, you were also at Google Brain. We didn't interact much. I was mostly with the machine translation folks. And I'm the one that is doing question answering. And I was one of the laziest engineers because I come from math background. I'm not that good at code TensorFlow, which is super hard to use at that time. But I basically decided, okay, let me copy the state-of-art machine translation architecture. That's before the self-attention architecture. So I copied the bidirectional STM model and immediately just like get it working on question answering. Basically, I'm the one that discovered, okay, by not changing a few lines of code, just like modifying the data set, you can get a machine translation code to work perfectly as a sequence model on question answering. I think when I look backwards, it's a pretty interesting discovery of like how like versatile this sequence model is. So when Ashish showed me the self-attention architecture, I'm the first one that actually got it work on question answering. So I also like witnessed the part of history together with Illia and with a lot of the other like transformer authors. Yeah, and fast forward after Google Brain, I was like, okay, proving any theorem about a real industry deep learning system seems hopeless, right? Like the speed of involvement of like all this architecture is so fast, and the systems that I saw in Google Brain is so complex. So I'm looking much more into applications. Did a lot of different research on like how to use AI in trading, how to use AI in like cryptocurrency designs and all that. And that fast forward lead me to where we are today in this triangle of like AI, finance, and like blockchain protocols.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, obviously, yeah, an interesting journey. So maybe explain what Pin AI is trying to achieve, and we can kind of dive in from there.
Maybe I can take this. So Pin AI is the first personal AI network. So we are essentially building personal AI, which means that it's an AI that is like very close to the user, has access to like broad context from user data. And our focus is on first usability. We want to be like build an application that is like serves user first, but also on privacy. So both the data and the model resides on the user device right now, and all the processing we do is on RT network that we built in-house, which serves our application. And then, like looking a little bit into the future, our vision is that essentially with all this crypto AI field kind of exploding right now, but we can see a trajectory where a lot of agent services are going to be registered on blockchains, are going to be paying on blockchains, etc. We want the personal AI of PIN to be also a gateway into this whole universe of services.
Yeah, let me add one more thing, which is our long-term vision on the AI side, where we're using different technologies, but truly what we want to land is we want to have the most personalized AI, both the AI that help you save time, like your AI executive assistant, like different type of AI agents like Apple Intelligence, or the AI that help you kill time, like your most kind of close to heart companion, your like favorite AI that is like the movie Her, right? Those AI. We want to have both AI that like actually work as the way that we see in science fiction, and we believe the biggest missing element is to have every user's versatile personal data all aggregated together from their shopping history, their chat history on different social platforms, their trading history, both in centralized exchanges and in all the wallets, like everything you can imagine, right? Like your video watching history and all that. Put all of that together in a streaming fashion, so that it's a source of like your entire like digital life, and so that all different AI developers and small companies can actually build different versions of AI agents, AI avatars, applications that is gonna know you much better than without using PinAI.
I have a couple of questions. So you mentioned that the model and the data are on the user device, but then you said that there's like a TE network. So how do you split the work between the TE network and the local machine?
Yeah, so the TE network right now, like it basically does two things: data fetching and processing. So what the user can do is we have data connectors for all the main like Web2 applications. We built like a dozen of them, and then this is going to be open source protocol where like we invite more people to add. So the TE right now is focused on the data processing part, not on the agent part. So essentially like fetches the data and then processes, and it extracts like user preferences, so kind of compresses the data, and then the data is then sent back to the user device, and it's only saved there as context for the personal AI.
So in this case, the TE machines, they don't have like H200s or whatnot. It's just CPU machines, right?
Not a requirement to have GPUs, no.
Yeah, I think eventually when there are enough H100 with confidential mode, which is the second batch of H100, and then ever since I think all the NVIDIA GPU have the confidential mode thing, then I think slowly there will be more of those TE that have strong compute ability.
Yeah. And as a user, so like I assume TE only makes sense if as a user I can get a quote, have the image of the virtual machine. So how does that work? Is there like a repo with the VM available, or how do I as a user know that the processing happens inside of the TE?
Yeah, the data connector protocol and the processing, it's all open source. Yeah, I mean it's not yet, but it's going to be in a few weeks when we like launch the testnet.
Yeah, that's cool. We've been diving quite a bit into TEs, right? And like ensuring this protocol where I, as a user, can actually fully confirm that something is running inside of the TE is not as trivial, right? Like I guess it's trivial to get the quote, right? But the quote is attesting only to that much, and having the whole protocol where I can confirm that it's actually the VM, that there's no man in the middle, it's not that trivial, I guess. And educating users also is going to be an interesting, challenge, right? Because, like, I think it's an interesting question, right? Because you're running on device, so I would be interested to know how good of a quality you manage to get on device and what models you're running, right? But I think like the way I think about it, more and more models will be running in TEs, right?
Yeah.
And users need to be educated on how to confirm that they're actually interacting with the TE and not someone who's, like the virtual machine inside of the TE doesn't have backdoors, doesn't have SSH enabled and whatnot. Right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I think 2 points. The first one is that our vision is the same, actually. Like, we also believe that like most agents and agent services are not going to be on the local device, right? There is too much computational constraints there to like fit all of them. That's why like the personal AI for us, I use this term before gateway, right? The personal AI can do some things for you. There will be some integrations. We want people to build like some integration to maybe like control some apps from your local device. But the main use for that is that it has access to all your context and can act as like personal broker as well to like services that are in the cloud or in TEs that are registered in like maybe the near blockchain or like these other registries that are popping up in different blockchains. Yeah, so this is the first point. I think our view is aligned there. And then the second point around like basically security of these agents, I think it's very important, right? Like, I don't think that TE is the only solution, right? Like, to me, there is like kind of like 3 levels. There is like, first is reputation for like low stakes actions. Then it's like crypto economics, like staking and slashing or like putting some fund in escrow, like for agents. You don't need to verify all the code, like for things that are not high stakes. And then like for the high stakes thing, you want like cryptographic security. And I think that's where like TE comes in. I guess at some point we need to move past them once like the cryptography is more production ready. But yeah.
So today, what model do you run locally? Is it like Llama or is it fine-tuned?
So we're actually trying a few different models. Some is like our in-house fine-tuned like Tiny Llama, and also in-house fine-tuned the Qianwen, the Alibaba's model. And we are basically trying to figure out which small model has ability to run on the phone, but also have the capability to do strong on-device like RAG. Since a lot of our task is about unstructured data summarization and structured information extraction and basically blind preference labeling without saying user's data, can we do like user preference labeling through question answering style. So the key is basically very strong RAG and summarization. And it requires some fine tuning, and also it requires testing over different models. So we are pretty like kind of base model agnostic in terms of our pipeline designs.
And I guess completely orthogonal question, right? But I think something interesting to establish early is can you give like, a couple of examples of something that someone would use PinAI in the next year, right? So what are the most, like in your view, which scenarios in our lives today are the most, ripe for being solved with the, personal assistant who has all the context and, like constantly running on your device?
I think there are 2 types on high level in my mind. One is save time, the other is kill time. In terms of save time, it's more like your assistant, your like executive assistant, or your like even say like the boss of your family office for someone successful like Illia, right? You're more familiar with like there are people who runs your personal life, like help you book trips, helps you like arrange restaurant, and help you like do day-to-day shopping, so that it more like save your time and energy, and protect you from the ads and the spamming and all that. You just need to give it your high-level instruction to do everything. Even like with the family office, it helps you like say trade and manage your money in crypto and even in traditional stock market, right? Allocate your wealth into different say like ETFs, or like even in different meme coins if you are very up to it in terms of risk appetite, right? It's kind of like similar to shopping. It's an expression of your value system. Yeah. And the other type is the killing time. Killing time is more about companion. It's more about solve the loneliness and really know you, and really be there with you and provide the emotional value. Those ones, I think today OpenAI is not pushing there, right? My wife works at OpenAI on more like the 01, 02, 03, 04 lines of work. It's more like pushing the frontier of human reasoning capability, and pushing the frontier of like how good the silicon intelligence can get to. But there's another direction, which is how can we build AI that really cater towards every single human being, and make them feel like this is truly my like AI bestie that knows me, and be there with me when I'm depressed, or be there with me when I'm happy, and this is the one that listens to me regardless of like how much complaint I have and how much negative emotion I have. I think those AI are pretty hard to build. If you look at character AI and stuff, they were more about engaging towards a specific target user group. And if you look at some of the past trials like Inflection's Pi, they were trying to build a good emotional AI, but apparently the founder has becoming Microsoft chief scientist. So I guess it's like halfway down. So it's actually very hard AI research problem. And I believe the hardest part is to actually get a streaming refreshed version of users' versatile data, so that you truly understand the user. And with the understanding, then you also attract the top AI researchers to figure out how to make the AI really provide the emotional value on the long
run. Yeah. Actually, yeah. Like initially when we started the conversation, I was going to ask how it is, how it compares to character, but I see that it's sort of in a very different space, right? It's less about having your. Actually, that's a question I still have, right? So given what you just said, right? So character, the way I always understood character, right, is like, hey, now you have this body, right? Especially like if you're like an introverted person or whatnot, you actually have someone to talk to, right? And like initially when you were talking about like buying stocks, my mental model of PIN was slightly different, right? More of like helper, right? But you're effectively saying that it's not. Yeah, it is helping you to buy your stock, but it's also helping you to keep your mental health in check, right? So like how do you see like PIN as the sort of also partially attacking the market of character, or do you think it's completely different?
I think it's slightly different in the sense character is not trying to do personalization, at least not as of today, right? Like I'm pretty familiar with the space, character, Talkie, Chai. They were all mostly trying to optimize for the engagement of their model, so that you have even longer rounds of conversation. And I think a good fraction of their user is actually teenagers who are kind of lonely and are still in school and cannot really watch TikTok videos and just like chatting in classroom. And I think their optimization is towards the distribution of that group to make the model really engaging to them. And their characterization is not what I consider as personalization, right? There is a thing about who the AI talks like, right? And the other is who does the AI care about. In their case, it's more like their AI can talk very much like Elon Musk or Taylor Swift, but they do not specifically care about you and know your information. What we are trying to build is more like AI that really cares about you. It can still be in the form of Taylor Swift because you are such a big fan of Taylor Swift, but it's like your personal Taylor Swift that really is like your bestie and knows you.
Yeah.
I actually, because I mean, like I described user-owned AI as effectively AI that, cares about your success, not, trying to make money off you, which is, most of these companies are right now. But I'm curious, how are you guys thinking about the, cares about you? How do you measure that? How do you, what is the loss function in this case, or reward function?
I think care, basically, you can say that in like AI that does not make money off you, it makes money for you maybe in the future, right? So I think the loss function kind of depends on the application itself, right? So I think a third category that Bill didn't talk about is like this more like it's more futuristic / like AI native use cases where like there's going to be like real AI services out there, and they may like recruit different AIs, or they may want access to like your personal data asset, like your personal IP, etc. So the personal AI there can be like a key piece of infrastructure for you to connect to these new type of services. This is like new applications that don't look like the ones we have today, right? They don't look like booking a trip or anything. It's like AI native, non-skeuomorphic apps. So there, you can have like clear reward. Like in the case of, for example, like participating in like investment collective, you can get the feedback from like the profit in your wallet. I think that to me is like one clear loss function that like probably like if we're able to like financialize a lot of these interactions, maybe you can use it not just for like one applications but for multiple ones. I don't know. More in general, maybe at some point we need to give people the ability to kind of program in their goals. So we are not there yet as with PinAI, but that could be also an option like in the future, right? That we give people the ability of specify how much they care about like different features.
Yeah. So currently, as of today, we're trying to understand, okay, how much your versatile personal data collection provides value about letting your personal AI knows about you, right? So we actually designed this concept called God mode. It's essentially like a examiner that come up with like a paper test that is like like 100 questions about you, and it's like in question answering form about where is your favorite blah blah blah, and who did you talk to on Tinder last week, and what's their response to them, and stuff like this. Basically, you can design different styles of question targeting different subset of usage category, and the key is to have the personal AI slowly learns about you, and really it's more like if you are a really important person, you are trying to like curate a long-term loyal servant that like really knows all your detailed preference even better than yourself.
Yeah, and this part, like we're doing research on it right now. Like we've had like some interesting results, but like this type of evaluation frameworks are like they have some challenges to build. But we feel that if we keep making progress to a point where like it's really robust, this can be like integrated into our protocol, right? And people can essentially have a better generic measurement of like what their personal AI is capable that goes beyond just how many data assets like it has access to.
So Alex and I actually were building a predictive AI assistant back in not just blockchain, but pre-near AI days. And so one of the things that we found, which was extremely, I mean, for few people at least, was extremely useful, and it was an interesting signal, is at the end of the day asking how people felt or how did their day go. That effectively is like an NPS type score, but it gives you a very like clear signal, and then you can use that to kind of analyze, all of the things that person had throughout the day, and suggest maybe things to like improve from there. Obviously, back when we were building it, we didn't have any kind of level of sophistication of models to understand the context of person's day and data. But that was kind of one of the things we looked at back in the day, because we were actually trying to do some of those things back in 2017, in very different age.
At that time it's completely impossible to just understand unstructured data, right? You have to curate a very clean, structured training data, and then dev set, test set, all that. Now it's mostly like treated as like a blind unstructured data reader, and then like you can ask any questions and hope it can do a decent job.
Yeah, but back in the day, you can still get some insights, right? Like you can measure how many hours the person slept, or whether their geographical location coincided with any bars, right? And then compare to their mood.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that there's a few different directions here. We can dive in a little bit more technically, right? Because indeed, like we at Near AI as well, look, as Alec mentioned, right, looking a lot in TEs, including for AI inference, because it does seem like a prerequisite for this kind of agentic VAB that we all want to achieve. And then the other aspect of this is also like, how will all of these agents work together, coordinate and communicate, as well as with your kind of personal assistant. So I know you guys are also looking at kind of intent protocol to enable that. So maybe you guys can start kind of how you look at it, and we can contrast and compare.
Yeah, maybe I can start. So we haven't done too much development work on this, right? We have a research team that is like spending some cycles on it. I feel that it's a key question as like the agents come to life, right? So we've seen the first wave, right? We have seen the first wave where like, if you remove all the noise, what's left is essentially there is like these initial agents that have like some utility, and it's kind of more in the entertainment category, right? It's like in the kind of content generation on social media.
Twitter shitposting.
Yeah, maybe the shitposting is like, it has utility for some projects, right? Like if done right.
I'm automating CMO, right?
Yeah, like
CMO.
or KOL, marketing. So that bucket. And then there is something interesting around like this more kind of art as like music generation, or like so only these two categories. Like I feel that like we will quickly move past these, and as like base models improve, like all the agents that I call utility agents, or maybe you can call service agents, are gonna come to life. So at that point, I agree that we need like intermediation protocol between agents, right? It's not just the communication, but it's also the ability to make commitments, to like have access to like assets on different chains. I'm curious also from your perspective. I cannot really see how this will emerge, right? Because standards are kind of hard to form, and we cannot sit in circle and design a standard. Like it's probably going to emerge from like the protocols that are most successful in terms of volume of like these agents coming online. But I'm also curious on your perspective on this, since in Near you are hosting a lot of these projects and kind of curating like a bigger ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, the way we kind of think of this is effectively two-punch approach, right? So as you said, like for this to take hold, you need a lot of service agents. I call them useful agents, to contrast to useless. I mean, to meme coin agents. So you need a way to like okay, well, where's the service is going to run? How are they going to be able to, register themselves, indicate what they do, get paid, kind of settle, run inference, pay for that cost, etc. Like all of that mechanisms. And it's totally possible for somebody to run all of that infrastructure and run it and, pay for these things and kind of settle costs, etc. But it's all complicated. And like, if we assume, every restaurant and every, Uber driver and every whatever should have their own agent who is effectively representing them in this agentic web, well, this should be super easy for anybody to start, to configure, to run, right? And so that's where the agent hosting comes in, and that's where, T infrastructure with GPU inference needs to come in, because we want to ensure it's end-to-end private, it's verifiable. If you want to run autonomously, you can. If you want to, obviously, this agent to represent you and you have full control, you also can. So that's kind of, the app.near.ai offering you effectively an agent hosting. We actually sponsor AI inference costs there as well. And, you can like fork any agent, configure it. It can use blockchains. It can use Web2 services. It has secrets, etc. Now, kind of that's where the, part one comes in. And part two is like, okay, well, now that we have agents and as well, they can use services, etc. There needs to be a way to like kind of anyone to say, hey, I want somebody to run marketing for me, right? Or I want, pizza or whatever. So like indicate intent. And so there is, a network of these agents who can be like, yes, I can do that. This is something that I'm like capable of doing. Now the other agent or user's assistant, right, selects the, which one it wants to transact with. They sign commitment, it goes on chain, and there is a mechanisms to, reason if the product wasn't delivered, if the service wasn't delivered, if it's not on par, not quality, etc. So that's kind of the like two-sided thing. And there we also like bootstrapping it with just DeFi, because kind of that's the easiest place to start. And there's a massive demand on just like a multi-chain kind of swap and bridge, which this thing very easily offers. But then already we're going to have actually example in next day or so, or in the past already, is the ability for an AI agent to effectively respond to this intents as well as on chain. So like I call it AMM, where A stands for AI. So AI market maker. And so it's an AI market maker that effectively runs in TE, can respond to like trading intents or on-chain transactions, decide how it wants to, like what price it wants to quote you, and then, kind of settle that transaction, right? So this is like just like kind of building up from those two directions, like more AI agents that can do more things, and then DeFi into more generic intents, kind of bringing them together.
Yeah, that's a very interesting vision. I initially also thought about this, like how to grow this bi-part marketplace, right? This like a network where one side is consumer users. For our case, is like every user have their personal AI represent them. On the other hand, it's every single small business should have a service AI represent them. And you need to like grow this bi-part network. And I was looking at the internet and feel like, okay, to convert all the service AI, it's probably the easiest to start from the legacy web and the legacy mobile service who has already APIs, right? So we have this concept of agent link that basically you can wrap all the like a website into API and then API into an agent and then attach its wallet and everything. That's kind of the initial design. But in our first phase, when we look at how to grow a bi-part network, we feel like, okay, we should only grow one side, which is the supply side of like the personal AI, and just have every user onboard their data and build their own personal AI and get the personal AI really well. Since I realize among the consumer side, even if there is not much service as of 2025, maybe it will happen in 2026. In 2025, it can still be like a consumer to consumer network. Like a two-person can have like social interaction, can form all different relationships. If you look at internet today, there are like Facebook, there are LinkedIn, there are Tinder, there are like all different kinds of like consumer to consumer interaction. So I was like, okay, maybe let's just focus on the consumer side and grow only one side of the network. That's kind of my reasoning. So I feel like Near is taking a slightly different way, which is attacking the hard part of like land the kind of business internet, right?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, we kind of attacking it from two directions because we have this kind of financial ecosystem, right, that's been built out anyway, and intent is the right approach. Like intent is the right approach for anyone with anybody else coming into some kind of transaction, right? Not even financial, right? It can be anything, and so. But like from financial, it's pretty clear path, and so like we're expanding that protocol, making it more generic, and then. I think you're right that so far, right, it hasn't been very useful, but I think like the things are getting really close where you can, buy from Amazon and, like book travel and do all those things. And so those examples that I think we'll see personal AI being able to do really easily on your behalf, either through we call them shims, like effectively wrapping an API with an agent, or web agent. So like I have this like thesis effectively that if your website or an app that's against AI, right, you will get web agent, meaning like there'll be web agent that will just go and click on your website and do stuff.
Yeah.
And so if you're against it, you're gonna get like automated, or you adopt it and you actually capture some value from that and become part of this, right? So you have two choices. And so web agent to me is it's like the backstop. The shim is effectively like a way to really easily to upgrade someone into this world, and then being AI native is effectively when you build your business AI first, right? So that's to me that's like a progression for anybody and kind of for use cases. And I think we're gonna like, given what we see like in YC as well, like I mean, again, outside of Web3, like there's a whole world of people building effectively AI startups right now, AI first startups replacing ton of services, right? Marketing automation, like all the phone call services, all the stuff is like effectively getting replaced right now with AI companies that are like AI first, AI native. And so
one of our other advisors and friend is Tim Scher from Cresta. So they were building like this call center agents like very early. Like, they are pretty like they're not a startup anymore. I have one thing which I think could be interesting to double click is like this notion of intent, right? Because like, especially in Web3, like it's kind of an overloaded term. Like for some time, like everything was about like these intents, which were just like sometimes just partial transactions or like very like DeFi focused, right? But you mentioned something that like we've also been thinking a lot about. I started calling them like generalized intents, like just to like separate them from like only DeFi/transaction. I don't know, like maybe we need a new name for this, but it seems like you are alluding at like a new object, which is like actually very different from a transaction, right? A blockchain transaction. Like, can you say more around like what's kind of like the design principle and like how it looks like even for developers and what kind of this abstraction is trying to achieve?
Yeah, I'm actually behind on a blog post about this.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, and I agree that like intent in blockchain somehow became like this is just like a wrap limit order, and like that became a meme. But I define intent as like somebody else to get some shit done for you, or in short, get shit done. To me, it's effectively a interactive off-chain interactive protocol that involves 3 steps. So first step is intent request. So this is when you share that you want something done, and you either directly share it with some specific party or parties, or you broadcast it to a some network of kind of intent solvers. right? So to give you an example, I mean, obviously, I want to somebody to run a marketing campaign for me and generate 100,000 impressions on my website, right? Definitely not a limit order. Or I want to buy an apartment with a mortgage. Again, very much an intent.
Some constraints on it.
Yeah, like I'm in Lisbon and et cetera, right? So so then you have this is interactive. So responses, whoever sees an intent and says like, this is something I can do or interested in doing, they respond with a quote, like we call them quotes. So this is effectively an option to fulfill this intent, which can be a composite, right? So it can be that like, I got an intent of like, I want to buy an apartment with a mortgage. I actually queried somebody else who is selling apartments, and I queried somebody else who does mortgages, right? And so, so I'm returning actually a combination of these things, which is, this apartment as a collateral to this mortgage provider, this, you need to pay this much as deposit and this much interest rate for this apartment that, you want to buy. And you have multiple options, right? So this gets returned back to the caller, requester. And so that's when, again, if it's a user, they can select an option. If it's their AI assistant, it can like pre-score it and maybe show the user only selected options, whatever that thing is. And then when the user selects or AI agent selects, that's when kind of the sign happen. And so this becomes a commitment. So this now has a commitment of the solver and the requester that goes on chain. And so on chain, actually, the interesting thing is on chain can not just be like, okay, let's exchange like money, but it can be as complex as like running an arbitrary program on chain, right? Because the condition of the success can be arbitrary. You can literally attach a JavaScript piece of code into this thing, which will run on chain over time, like in 6 days, check if the apartment ownership was transferred or whatever. Including you can actually run an AI agent yourself to check that something happened. Like, oh, go to registry of apartments and check that this happened. And if yes, then release money from escrow. And if not, then start a dispute process, which then, it goes to another AI agent who's like, okay, evaluate the log of the, what they were trying to achieve and see who is wrong. And if not, go to court. Like if you cannot do it, go to court. And actually, this is like legally signed document because you have two signatures on both sides, and there's like underlying kind of chat history that happened, right? So the way kind of I think of this is effectively what you traditionally would do as a company to company, right? You would have a legal document, you would sign it on both sides, you would have force majeure entry, you would have like on not delivery, etc., like all of those things. It would be a natural language program, right? It programs effectively a lawyer who will review it later to decide what happened. And it will have cryptographic signatures, and then you would have billing and invoicing and all the escrow, etc. So all of that tooling can be done by blockchain. All of the interpretation of this thing can be done by AI agents. And you also have this mechanisms of discovery and kind of participation. So that's it. It's a pretty, it sounds complex and there's some complicated parts of it, but it allows to actually move a lot of the things we usually expect smart contracts to do to kind of this off-chain protocol, which is way easier. And it allows to do effectively everything in Web 2 right now in this protocol way more effectively.
I see. Yeah, makes sense. And then you use the chain just like for the hard property that it's built for.
Exactly. It's execution, settlement, and it's effectively a register of assets and value, and it's settlement and kind of state transition execution.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. You were thinking about such a heavy, like a real world tied things that easily will need to go to like a real world oracle, like a court and stuff, right? Like I was more thinking like, can we replace today's like say internet eyeball matching things that happen on say like how like a user gets to see this Twitter post rather than that Twitter post, whether Meta push you this ads or that ads, right? Today the like a hidden contract is you use a Web 2 internet a Web 1 internet product, and they do not give you any value. They know your personalization through a first party closed loop data flywheel. and in the meantime, they send ads to you, and like that's your cost of using their free product and service. Right? I was thinking, okay, is it possible to have a different way of doing it, where user can actually sell their eyeballs, their attention, and their intent, which in my mind is more like attention, but like associated with a transaction purpose, right? It's like there would be some monetary value that happen with this attention. And I feel like in PNAI's design, we're more thinking, can we let every user basically run their own Facebook like ads auction algorithm and sell, say, like their like needs to curated the top 5 service provider that are all qualified to fulfill their intent, and then they come and bid for like who gets this final like order of like ability to serve you, this opportunity to serve you. Right?
This is actually not that different from Illia. The key difference here is that like you are talking about like a purely digital example. Like the hard part about Illia maybe that you're highlighting is that, okay, for like real world goods and asset, like it may be more challenging, because for purely digital goods, then you can
have a cryptographic, you have some authentication, So that, I mean, the pure simplest example for pure digital is obviously swaps, right? And that already works right now. We have a product effectively running on top of that. Actually the eyeballs and advertisement is interesting because, well, outside of me hating advertisement, but it is a useful tool. And so one of the things we actually thought, and you guys are probably pretty close to that, is you can actually use the secure enclave on the mobile device as a way to ensure that the user actually watches the ad and do all the scoring indeed on the local device as well. Brave, actually, I don't know if you're familiar, Brave is doing that model as well, which I think is a pretty good model. And like, how do you send, then the question becomes like, how do you send and settle receipts around that user watch that ad? Right, and like all the tracking around that, and there's some interesting like cryptographic questions, like how to accumulate, like how to build an accumulator of receipts, because you don't want to, if you're having like 1 million impressions on some ad, like you don't want to settle 1 million transactions of that, although you can on Near, but you can. I mean, there's still like there's value in like aggregating that into like a payment channel style system. So, which is also something we've been looking at around TEs as well. Like TE become kind of being one of the parties in the payment channel, which allows you to do monetization very effectively as well. Cool. I mean, I think we're over time, so it was really awesome conversation. Thanks for kind of explaining your vision, and obviously very aligned with it. I'm excited to work more together and kind of do a lot of interesting things in bringing all of these pieces together.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a very hard mission to actually push. As we discussed, you can see like there are more and more gravity pull towards the real world, like as we move out of like a pure financial DeFi, I feel like it's probably gonna be 99% of the future transaction 10 years from now, right? Like if you look at real internet, it starts from a lot of like digital financial transactions. Slowly it becomes much more about games and ads and post and all that, right? I feel like with blockchain we might go through all that. Let's push together to
exactly.
We can only win as an industry. This is something I'm really convinced of, right? Like